well. Hope you're doing well. Back in for another edition of the short show for the USL show. We'll be live again with the full crew tomorrow night just to kind of round up everything, hit on the games in a lot more detail than I'll do right now, get some League One in there. But tonight, I just want to kind of talk about some of the matchups we had this weekend, wrap up with a lot of talk about Solomon Asante, and then answer any questions that you guys are coming up with throughout the course of the stream. So without further ado, we started off the match week with a nice little matinee game, Pittsburgh against Tulsa, pitting really two sides that have maybe been two of the best four in the East so far. And Pittsburgh jumped down Tulsa's throats out of the gates. They systematically, by far, are the most unique team in the USL. They've played a four at the back at times, notably against Detroit to little success, but they've kind of settled into this like 3-6-1 formation. It's classic kind of Bob Lilly weirdness, and it just works so well in how it maximizes the talent on this team. I think the other thing that you have to think about with Pittsburgh is the way that Bob Lilly takes a player or two who's been a squad guy, who's coming out of college, and turns them into like a bona fide USL star every season. You're seeing that with Albert Dikwa at the striker position. I thought Danny Rivera looked really good in the center. And it's the reason why Pittsburgh jumped out to that 4-1 lead. And then Tulsa just kind of stayed in there. Pittsburgh got a little bit defensive and stopped pushing forward as much. And Rodrigo da Costa went to work. He, for me, has been like a top 3, maybe MVP candidate to this point in time. Just an excellent kind of hybrid number 9, number 10 type in this Tulsa squad. And he really carried them to both of those goals to make this look a little bit friendlier of a scoreline than probably was deserved. But following that up, we had the Colorado Springs Las Vegas match. And that, to me, was another instance of one team really jumping down the throat of the other one and ending up with a scoreline that maybe was a little bit friendly. And in this case, the switchbacks were certainly the stronger of the two teams here. I mean, what more can you say about your Haji Berries, your Michigalinas? I did want to focus on the impact that the center midfielders had in this game. Zach Zandy and Cam Lindley both have been excellent. Zandy coming back for another season, Colorado Springs, and Lindley moving over from San Antonio. The thing that set them apart in this game was the way that Vegas sat deeper and deeper to try and control that forward line. And it left these huge gaps in the hole in that zone 14 area that Zandy and Lindley were just running into at will, essentially. It powered them to the 2 goals that gave them the win here. I did want to just call out the broadcast angle in Las Vegas, which I saw a couple people talk about on Twitter. Consistently some of the worst camera work in the USL, like very shaky. You miss a ton of the action, just annoying. But Vegas is still fun. They are going to have this style where they generate like 2 shots in a game and score both of them because they're insanely good counterattacking chances. So that's sort of what you deal with the lights. But yeah, switchbacks looking strong. Next game up on the schedule was an exciting one and the biggest blowout of the week, say for El Paso. And that was Detroit 4-0 over Atlanta United. I was pretty vocal in the preseason, pretty vocal early on in the year that I kind of didn't think Detroit was for real with that NISA roster. You had a couple of good players, think Copano, think Billy Forbes, who's hardly seen the pitch in recent weeks. But I just doubted the NISA guys, and they've proven me wrong completely to the max. Speaking of Max, Maxi Rodriguez was really so vital to the way that Detroit picked Atlanta apart in this game. Atlanta's sort of known for their high press, and one way of going about beating that is playing down the gut of it. If you have a midfielder who can really possess the ball under pressure and spray passes to break through past those forward lines that are pushing up, and Maxi did that to a T. And then Detroit, who was able to play through, got it into the final third. And whenever they lost it, they were counter-pressing hard, which is something we've not seen from Detroit to this point in the season. So to have such a holistic performance from them was completely heartening. And yeah, it's Atlanta. Atlanta's not good, but Detroit is for real. And you have to consider them a playoff contender at the moment, and certainly a team that maybe is even favored to get into the playoffs. But next up, we have really the big upset of the weekend, which was Miami going into Tampa and getting a 1-0 win. Tampa was the better side by expected goals. Tampa looked more fluid in terms of their offense, but this is the first time that Miami has ever won in Tampa in USL League play, and they did it by completely changing up their tactics. Anthony Pulis, both in St. Louis and in his early tenure here with Miami, has really relied on a 4-4-2, essentially like your classic English style 4-4-2. And he decided he wanted to go with a three at the back this time around. And that's because of the formation that Tampa plays, which is a three at the back, and it plays with these three forwards. So you have that extra defender, in this case, Aiden Stanley, I believe, making a season debut. He was someone that Pulis brought over from the St. Louis system, and he slots into this back three that's matching Tampa man for man. And it was a very bend, don't break approach where they just absorbed waves of pressure over and over and were able to nab a really nice goal. Florian Velo started in the pivot. He's much more of an attacking mid or winger traditionally, and he looked excellent next to Speedy Williams on the winning goal. He was feeding it through the middle. A really great overlapping run from Mark Segbers. Like, stop me if you've heard that before. Opened up space for Perez to get a shot off. Rebound does the rest, and Miami wrote it out. So kudos to them. We'll hit on a bigger storyline with Indy later on in the show, but they even got a 2-1 win on the road at Rio Grande Valley. Indy's not great offensively right now, if we're being honest. They're only getting about 2 shots on target per game. They've got the least of those in the entirety of the USL. But they came up against RGV side, who's maybe the second or third worst offense in the league. So we still got 3 goals in this game, and the Stefano Pino, Mishak Jerome connection was the big deal for Indy here. Jerome is someone who's played under Mark Lowry for years, dating back to the Jacksonville Armada, and he finally looked like the kind of player who's used to this system. He was stepping up to close down defensively and doing so really effectively, really anchoring that Indianapolis back line. And on that opening goal, he basically got it, dumped it way far up the pitch to Pino, who, if he can do anything, it's finish in those sorts of scenarios. He's really your striker in that regard. And so he got the job done. RGV can't be overly happy with the result. They are a team that I questioned a lot in the offseason as well, because they waited so long to announce a lot of their signings. They had new media people come in, and I warmed up to some of the players that they added, but at the same time, it just hasn't gelled in a way that's been great. And when you have a roster that's not the most talented to begin with, it's just tough. The big signing for them, weirdly, has ended up being Dylan Borchek. He's this left winger coming out of college soccer. I didn't really know much about him, obviously, and he's just been dynamite on that side. He's connected well with their other best signing, Ricky Ruiz, who came over from Chattanooga in League One. Those two have been pretty much the entire spark for this team in how they break opponents down. And they've not done much of that, but those two are the source of a lot of the chances. So get them more involved, maybe try to sort things out deeper in the midfield, put an extra body there, and things could get up for RGV. But moving forward, that El Paso 5-0 demolition of Monterey Bay. El Paso obviously hadn't got a single point in the league up to this game, but they looked so much better on defense here, and their offense was carrying things. They've led the USL in possession, passes played, that sort of thing by a pretty wide margin to date. It's just been those defensive errors where they give up these counter-attacking opportunities and their center backs are woefully out of position. Well, they cut out a lot of the turnovers at the front end, and they figured out a lot of the defensive coverage and support problems. I thought Harry Brockbank was really admirable at right back, staying fairly conservative and covering for his teammates in that back line. There was a red card in this one, but you have to shout out, like, Diego Luna was tearing Monterey apart. The set piece design to get Andrew Fox involved in the box was excellent. So really holistic 5-0 win. For Monterey Bay, tough all around. They didn't have Kai Green starting at center back. I don't know if that was an injury or a woefully incorrect tactical choice, but they were much worse off for it. Robbie Crawford made his full debut for Monterey, and he played as a number 10 when he's much better in like a 6 or 8 role, getting box to box. So some kind of weird decisions from Frank Yallop, and Chase Boone didn't really get his moments of magic, so it was always going to be tough. Moving forward again, we've got the San Antonio 1-0 win over Orange County. I've been love-hate with both of these fan bases at certain points. To just shout out Orange County real quick, I think they've really figured it out with the balance in central midfield. Daniel Peterson has grown into the offensive role that they needed somebody to fill with Eric Avio leaving. The Danish midfielder just impressed me so much with the way that he could drop deep in terms of build up to drive possession, to drive chances. But it was those counterattacking opportunities where a San Antonio side that likes to push forward with speed, when they turn the ball over, suddenly they're really vulnerable. And Peterson did the most to kind of counteract that and find Milan Alosky in transition. I know I've hit it in a lot, but Cuba Torres just not selling me at striker right now. Gary Bailey, who was on color commentary in this one, was pointing out a lot of the same things that I've been saying, where Kubo's goal scoring came mostly about a decade ago at this point. So things to prove there, especially with the way that Sean Coley has performed off the bench. I know didn't hit heavy on San Antonio here, but Mitchell Tainer on that goal was just unbelievable. That was the play of the weekend for me. He charges up from his wide center back spot, puts in a tackle. The ball ends up back at Orange County's feet, a line back. Tainer continues to just charge up the pitch, puts in another tackle, and this time he's in control. That second tackle came against the center back, so now he's in space. Orange County is shifting over, and Tainer, who's a defender by trade, puts in a lovely cross that Elliot Collier hits on the half volley to win. So really good. One more West Coast action in terms of San Diego beating Charleston 4-1. Charleston is feckless in terms of what they're doing attack-wise. I talked about El Paso in possession. Charleston plays the most long balls in the league by like a hilarious margin. They're a very low-volume passing team, just quite wasteful. And San Diego, on the opposite end, is completely clinical. I think there's a comparison to be made in the way that they dominate and the way that San Antonio tends to dominate, where San Diego is going to pin you back, possess the ball high, work through strikers in possession, whereas San Antonio is going to sit back in their own half and have these lightning quick moves through the midfield. So just seeing that and seeing the performance that Jordan Farr put in, and then what you're getting from Coque Vegas in San Diego has really been cool. San Diego also relied a lot on Kyle Vassell's hold up here. And how about Thomas Among? He was acquired in a trade really close to the start of the campaign. He was never that great with Colorado Springs. Like, he certainly showed a lot of potential, but he was dynamic in this game. And if you want more on that, I think we've got the USL Tactics show up on the YouTube channel already, but we'll be spreading that out on Twitter, where I kind of break down what the forwards were doing so well in this match. But yeah, between those two teams, I really think you've got at least the two hottest teams in the West, if you're not including the Switchbacks. But then we have another team that's been up and down, and that's Phoenix getting the 3-1 win against LA Galaxy. Sejas got the brace here. He's been fantastic in the midfield. It's a question of balance when you think about what Luis Manuel Sejas has added to this side. He's just so effective in terms of the way that he helps them have two different players who can control the game in possession. Aiden Quinn is one of them, and Sejas is the other now. So Kevon Lambert is obviously brilliant. He's the best holding midfielder in the league on his day. But right now, Phoenix needs him in the back line. didn't work in find really good opportunities. There was wing play from LA that was beating the fullbacks yet again. So Phoenix stayed solid and got some good goalkeeping, but the pressure there is just a little bit concerning when you're thinking about this team. And it's why I'm kind of bearish on where they're at in terms of my power ranks and that sort of thing. So that was the Saturday slate, and we only had two more games on Sunday, albeit two decent ones, two interesting matchups. And in the first of those, Louisville beat Loudon 2-0. And this was a shellacking. Loudon only put 2 shots total, not even on target. Like, it was not a strong performance for Loudon United in this game. And it began with the Louisville press and the Louisville defensive system. I harp on it a lot, but the way that they play in this sort of 4-1-4-1, 4-3-3-ish type of thing, pushing those wingers high, pushing their fullbacks high and higher relatively, it just makes it so hard for teams to build out. And when you think about what Loudon has done so effectively, it's taking their own wingbacks, getting them into the channels and the half spaces, and sort of overwhelming teams with the flexibility. And Sammy Guediri has been the poster boy for that. The thing with Guediri, despite how good he's been, is that he's a bit one-footed. He's very strong on his left and weaker on his right. And so Louisville was showing him onto his right foot the entire night and making it impossible for him to create. It's a smart strategy for them, and it just shows how that they keep this consistent system, but they adapt it to the team that they're playing, which is something that you can't underrate. One more game to hit on from Sunday, and that was Birmingham's very late 2-1 win against a really spunky-looking Hartford side. I've been down on Hartford, but they've moved finally to this 3-at-the-back system that they used a lot in the preseason, and I think it did wonders for them here. They generated, I wouldn't say a lot of offense, but a number of chances by playing into the feet of their forwards. You saw Rashawn Daly and Prince Sadie looking really effective. Daly is more of like the physical hold-up man. Sadie more of the kind of speedy player running off of him. Danny Barrera just lacking in terms of the chances he's finding in the midfield right now, which is concerning, but the overall system was good. That said, I thought this was a better look for Birmingham in general. Juan Agudelo made his full league debut here in terms of getting a start. And he looked okay. There was a strong headed chance early in the game. He had a couple good moments of hold up. He'll get better as he gets more used to the teammates. But Prosper Kasim in the first half really impressed me. Finding space in that right half space, playing this narrow winger role, bringing Mikey Lopez in, working towards teammates. He's someone who I was kind of thinking they should bench for Bruno Lapa to maintain that like Enzo insert striker here forward line. But boy, did he look good. And then Anderson Asidu, obviously, he got that late goal, but he was doing his usual wrecking ball thing in the midfield, putting in tackles, driving possession out of the back. Hartford man-marked him early on in the game. And so the fact that he was next to Enzo Martinez in the pivot really punished Hartford for that decision, because when you're overcommitting to an Asiadu and suddenly you have one of the all-time leading assisters in the USL right next to him, that's asking for trouble. And Hartford abandoned that when they realized the mistake, but I just thought it was something interesting to note out of that one. So that's the match week, and I was kind of figuring it would be light little news heading into the Wednesday round of matches. And then Indy 11 go out and sign Solomon Asante this afternoon. Asante obviously is a 2-time MVP, spent a couple of years, 4, I believe, in Phoenix, scored more than a goal every other game. What more can you say? I mean, he's the best player in the USL over the past handful of seasons. A really handy signing for the 11, no doubt. But I think tactically, he is a picture-perfect fit. In terms of the problems that have been ailing this team so far, Lowry obviously plays with that diamond midfield, the formation with 2 strikers, and a pretty aggressive number 10 behind them. And this number 10 position is, I think, where Asante is going to start for this 11 team. It doesn't require you to get back defensively, just to answer to the comment that Harry is making there. I think it's tailor-made for an Asante at his 31 years of age because it forces you to kind of rove around the front line and try to cut off passing lanes. But at the same time, you're not tasked with like tracking back box to box like you would if you were putting Asante as a full-blown winger at this point in his career. So when you've got Manuel Ardiaga at striker, who was in the 90th percentile amongst all attacking players for his defensive actions last year, I think it frees Asante to play that roving role with a really kind of like a terrier in front of him. And then what he does offensively is really the difference here. I mentioned that Indy is only getting 2 shots on target per game so far, which is just so weak. And Asante basically can do that on his own, given the right system. One of the ways he does so is in transition. Very good player in space, very quick, despite those advanced years. And that's something that Indy's struggled with. They play a lot of long balls, but they either don't have the forwards there to get on the end of them, or when those forwards do find possession higher up off of these direct passes, they're a little bit feckless. Stefano Pino, for all his talents, isn't a dribbler. Eris Briggs is fine, but he's not going to individually create. Talk about someone who can take the ball and drive at goal, and that's Solomon Asante. So I think he's going to be really effective. And I think he pairs well with the skill sets of those 2 other forwards. I mentioned Manuel Ardiaga a minute ago, and he's not played yet this year because of injuries. But he's a forward who isn't really a goal scorer, first and foremost. I mentioned the pressing that he does. He's very active harrying opponents, and that really is going to liberate Asante to a degree. But Ardiaga is also someone who's capable of dropping down a level into the regions you would think of for a number 10. And that interchange with Asante at those positions is going to be fantastic. You can just imagine Ardiaga picking up the ball in the middle, Asante streaking down that way. You either feed him or Asante's pulling defenders away to open up Stefano Pino, who on his day can be clinical. So I think the proof of concept is pretty innate there just because of what Asante brings, the track record that he has as one of the best players in the USL ever, really. To Indy fans, there was a certain segment of people who had already been pretty down on this season and down on the fact that the roster build wasn't that impressive coming into the year. So to see Indy come out, splurge like this on a bona fide legend really is a big deal for what this team is trying to present on the field. And they'll have a chance to prove it in the upcoming week with a matchup against, I believe, Atlanta, which is really a friendly way to integrate your new signing. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got here. I'll vamp for a minute to see if any questions roll in. I know we've got 2 midweek matches to look forward to, as well as 2 Friday matinee games. On the USL show feed, I mentioned it from the top, but we'll be live tomorrow with that 9:00 stream with the full cast of characters. And then, yeah, Wednesday, looking forward to Memphis-Tulsa in a sort of South Great Plains kind of rivalry. And then an Oakland-San Diego game where Oakland had the weekend off this time around, facing a really strong San Diego. Oakland pretty mercurial in their own right. But we'll have full coverage of that on the short show Thursday. We put out a kit show recently, which was fun as always. And then I don't know if you saw it, but Kaler ended up putting out a very good away days segment. And that was, as always, good content from Kaler. But I think that that's one of the best things that we've been doing on the channel. So go back. I know we have Louisville. We've got Birmingham now. Go check those. Go watch the kit show. Check out the League One preview if you didn't listen to that. I mean, the quality and depth of the breakdowns there were fantastic. But I think that's all I've got for now. So thank you guys for tuning in as always. Be sure to check out the usual content. I'll have the Tactics show up tomorrow morning talking about San Diego. And until then, peace.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. This and every episode is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. Find podcasts and other written work at bgn.fm. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.